Previously on book reading with Baba Agba, Jimi Solanke.
You're welcome to the reading of Afolabi Imoukhuede's book, Never and After. As I was reading, I was picking on areas where I can read and everybody listening will know the innermost mind of the author. I'm taking it from chapter 4, charting my path dangerously. I am proud to be compared to a colossus like Chief Joseph Afolabi Imoukhuede, OBE. But it was the man himself that attempted to mold me in his own image. My father wanted one of his children to be a doctor. Not just a PhD in any field, but a medical doctor. He simply decided that what he could not achieve by himself could still be achieved through one of us, and he seemed to have zeroed in on me for that pet project. There'll be an interlude while the next segment comes on. Ènìyàn bí àparò lọmọ aráyé fẹ́. Ènìyàn bí àparò lọmọ aráyé fẹ́. Knowledge is power. Page 70, second paragraph. After expressing my desire to attend an Ivy League college, my brother agreed, which is impressive because these colleges are many times more expensive than the others. Being an immigrant in the United States, I had noticed the undercurrent of racism, which is often there. No matter how hard anybody tries to hide it, I know things have changed since 1997 and that racism is more pronounced in some states than in others. But I realized that I would be hindering myself if I expected fairness to fuel my progress. So, I planned my educational goals to put me in the exclusive bracket of extremely bright students so as to have a fighting chance even with the reality of racism. While at Excess, I actually got a full and comprehensive scholarship. I felt he would be motivated to convince me to take it if he had known. Once again, I was on the Dean's list at Rutgers University. I was even inducted into the Honors College. Although I did not get a full scholarship at Rutgers, I still managed not to pay the full tuition because my Honors College membership came with a 20% discount on the tuition I had to pay. So, through hard work and other departmental scholarships, I was able to reduce the financial burden my kind and gracious brother was bearing on my behalf. Months before I started working, I had already been profiled as an associate staff. This was how, without stumbling into any illegal activity or waiting for luck or trying to claim I was black and disadvantaged, I moved myself from an immigrant without a name to an employee of the best accounting firm in the world. I became an associate of people whose respect for me had nothing to do with my looks, but everything to do with the knowledge I had acquired. At KPMG, I experienced the reality of the old saying, knowledge is power. Ẹyọ ayẹyẹ ẹyọ bàbá ń ta wá tó fi góòlù ṣeré àwa ò lè sanwó ní òní òdìlé. Sọmọrí àdúgbò yìí ẹ jáde wá ẹ wá gbọ́dọ̀ sí àwa. ọmọ ní àdúgbò ẹ jáde wá ẹ wá bọ́ọ̀lù síyàwó. Bàbá jí lówùrọ̀ bàbá ń tọrọ ọmọ lọ́wọ́ ilé olóde wa o títí dọjọ́ alẹ́ á sí olèlè sí olèlè sí olèlè sí olèlè kẹ́nikẹ́ni má nà bọ̀bọ̀ yẹn ara wa ní bọ̀bọ̀ yẹn ara wa ní sí olèlè sí olèlè sí olèlè sí olèlè kẹ́nikẹ́ni má nà bèbí yẹn aya wa ní bèbí yẹn aya wa ní.
Today, on book reading with Baba Agba, Jimi Solanke.
Ladies and gentlemen, towards the end of the book, there is this very interesting chapter, Sustaining a Legacy. If some of us were able to know or could have read the history of the Imoukhuedes, these were the time of Western region when, Western region, up to Ikaibo, they are all part of our land here. Yes, up to Ikaibo, maybe not to talk of Ora, Ora, Isoko, and that was the time I learned all the songs. Ikeke, no bikeke be, aduko no mo no bikeke be, ikeke, agoita, ba romaru, agoita yo. These were some Ora songs, Isoko songs that then nobody knew where I was from in Nigeria, because I could sing Indiba in Nigeria, Biago. Golibenu, obodo agu, obodo gugwanu abu, Nigeria biagu, Golibenu. So, if you know the history then, the Imoukhuedes, both Papa and Mama, they were living with us in Ibadan. And he's saying here, sustaining a legacy. That is the last part of his book that I will be reading this evening. I love this part more than the other one, so I will put body into it. Enjoy it. There was a time in Nigeria when money, especially ill-gotten loot, was not the true measure of wealth or societal status. Rather, it was honor, mutual self-respect, integrity, and above all, a good name. Although my father did not die a poor man, he owned quite a bit of blue chip stocks and was the owner of valuable real estates in Ibadan GRA, Oyo State, Benin City, and Sabongida Ora, Edo State. The sort of wealth he bequeathed to my siblings and I was in the form of a sound ideology, mindset, worldview, and character. He also left me with an ethos founded on service, humility, love, and patriotism. This is why I admire him with all my heart. My mother, Afolabi Imoukhuede, aka Sisi, was a generous, kind-hearted, humanitarian par excellence, yet very disciplined. My parents left me a good set of DNA that predisposed me to excellence in everything I attempt. Academic brilliance as a norm, and outstanding achievement in general, measuring up to Chief Joseph Imoukhuede, OBE, is a tall order, but worth aiming for. After all, it is the prayer of all our parents to surpass them. As such, I must work not to drop the torch he passed on at death. Sheer academic brilliance without character may result in the most depraved kind of personality. Many of the most fiendish characters in the history were men of some sort of brilliance. It is a relief that a noble character undergirded my father's sharp mind. The way we were brought up reveals the type of philosophy my father had. We had several personal staff and aides of my dad in the home while growing up, but my father was magnanimous and wise enough to give the children of his domestic staff a chance for a bright future by ensuring that we attended the same extra lessons at home. Aside from the children of the cooks, stewards, gardeners, and drivers, even the neighbors' children were permitted to join our extra lesson. Everybody congregated around a massive table my father had made for that purpose. He worked to discourage any idea we had of being better than others. He punished my snobbish attitude by making the life of the offender miserable. People like Dr. Sonny Okwaise, who knew my father as Uncle Joe, have testified to his humility, his neatness as a person, his respect for elders. He outranked in the civil service and his genial nature. My father was also a polyglot, and I am embarrassed to admit that of all the languages in Nigeria, I can only speak Yoruba and then English, which is the compulsory language of literacy. My father could speak his native Ora, Bene, Yoruba fluently. He could speak a bit of Igbo and Hausa, courtesy of my grandfather, who worked across the country with the Post and Telecommunications Department, P&T. Circumstances do not make a man, but reveal who he truly is. Apart from the record of his honesty as Agent General and Student Affairs Officer for indigents of the Western region, schooling in the United Kingdom, there is a story that proves that my father was incorruptible, in the truest sense of the word. Long after he left the civil service to help people resolve issues, he sometimes utilized the enormous goodwill he enjoyed with the government. But he did this for free. In many cases, he simply made a phone call and was able to resolve a person's worry. A certain man my father had helped was desperate to show some gratitude. This man tried to force my father to accept a monetary gift by pretending that he wanted to leave a briefcase in my father's care while he traveled out of town. 3 years after the briefcase was left with my father, the man in question was shocked to realize that my father had not even opened it. The man confessed that the briefcase contained money for my dad as appreciation for the help he had rendered. Instead of accepting the money and letting life go on, my father insisted on returning the briefcase and cash to the owner. There's another story of how my father, after contributing his quota to set up a bank, was offered the board chairmanship of the bank in recognition of his efforts. But my father declined the offer, citing a conflict of interest because he was servicing a loan with the same bank at the time. My father knew what he was doing. As he often told us, if he wanted the choicest Benin lands to himself, he would have acquired them with ease. And nobody would have questioned him. He could have done this when he led the civil servants from the western region to the newly created Midwestern region. In the development of infrastructure, he could have amply compensated himself, but he had no interest in such things. Men who shunned wealth like my father often had to overcome the temptation to make a name for themselves. Even in this, my father proved quite exemplary. Although he was the first to build on his street in the government reserved area, GRA in Benin, around 1971, and could have freely named the street after himself, he chose not to do so. That street was eventually called Golf Course Road, and we lived on number 1 Golf Course Road. Even the road to his house in his hometown, Sabongidaora, could have been named after him, but once again, he declined. That road became Mission Road. As with naming streets, so he is with titles. My grandfather was a chief, and the chieftaincy was hereditary. When it became his turn to accept the title, my father ignored it for many years until 1986, when he reluctantly accepted it. His body language was clean, apart from service to the nation and love for humanity and those higher values, noting nothing else held such view that it had to be accepted, let alone sought. Indeed, there are many things about my father and several in his generation that seem hard to believe in 21st century Nigeria. The onus is on us to celebrate people like Chief Joseph and Afolabi Imoukhuede, OBE, since they will not celebrate themselves. It is actually to the society's benefit to do this, because in celebrating men like him, members of the society, especially the youth, may be inspired to follow their footsteps and live a life of service. My father's story can inspire all sorts of people, including civil servants, political appointees, and politicians. This is why my siblings and I are committed to hosting the annual memorial lecture on the day of his birth, April 25th, with its maiden edition in 2019 to mark his 30th memorial anniversary. This annual memorial lecture is beyond just celebrating my father. It is also a platform to espouse several topics bordering on the 7 attributes of public life: selflessness, objectivity, integrity, accountability, openness, honesty, and leadership, which is what his life reflects. In addition, JEI Forum, a platform of young intellectuals that anchors these annual lectures in partnership with the Ibadan School of Government and Public Policy, would host the Integrity Ambassadors TIA project to showcase the fundamental link between integrity, patriotism, and national development. I hope that by deconstructing the man and bringing his virtues out in the open for discussion, Nigerians and Africans will desire a renaissance rooted in love for country, love for fellow men, and an aggressive drive for excellence in public service. A new Nigeria is possible. Even if Nigeria discovers more oil and then finds other new natural resources, these new sources of wealth might not change anything. It might actually make things worse. When we had access to fewer resources as a country, the standard of living was higher. The secret behind this is no secret at all. For people like you, Imoukhuede, another public service icons of his time, entrusted with the welfare of the country, public service was truly a vocation, a calling that is more like a Levitical order of scriptures. They took it seriously as a spiritual call, believed they had a noble and godly responsibility to serve God through serving the public with their administrative endowments and found fulfillment doing same. Indeed, their spirituality in service gave birth to what Professor Tunji Olaopa refers to as the value of deferred gratification, a moral framework that ensured that public servants place their immediate banal base needs below the urgency of serving the public and the nation. I am ready to follow my father's footsteps, and I am happy to serve my country in whatever capacity, be it in the public or private sector. I was invited to serve in my current position. When I leave, I have something to fall back on. I came from the private sector, and to the private sector I shall return. This frees me to carry on the Imoukhuede legacy, and I consider this advantage a great blessing. I am delighted that Professor Tunji Olaopa is interested in deploying the resources of the Ibadan School of Government to support the immortalization of Chief Joseph E. Imoukhuede, OBE, through the annual memorial lectures. I do not have enough words to express my gratitude and that of my entire family. Long live the legacy of Chief Joseph Enaipoge Imoukhuede, OBE. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. We were on a session this afternoon with Afolabi, and I said, I learned to sing just 2 years. Let's do Fly Me to the Moon. In those days, you are not a good high life singer if you cannot sing what was termed classical in those days. That's where you can sing with the high life bands, because they vary their music at a point and go into singing songs like this. Okay, Fly Me to the Moon. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, darling, kiss me. Fill my heart with songs and let me sing forevermore. You all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true to me. In other words, I love you. And in those days, we use all these songs to chase girls.
It's a special edition of our show today, which is dedicated to the legacy of my daddy, my hero, and indeed my lifelong mentor, Joseph Enaipoge Imoukhuede. I therefore want to use his life and legacy as a set of pointers and perhaps direction to solutions to some of the challenges that plague our today. Well, home remains the bedrock of society. That charity begins at home. Our mentorship should really come from home. It should really come from our parents. Character is indeed king. But in my view, character is everything. That no nation can win without production. If we must win again, as a people, as a country, we must be producers.
Please join me on YouTube every Thursday at 6 p.m. West African time for another exciting and engaging episode of the Never an Afterthought show.
Kábíyèsí, Olórí and his Olórí, Sir Baba Agba, Ààrẹ Amúlùdùn first, and Sir Jimi Solanke. It's what filled me to really appreciate you, sir, for what you have been able to put together tonight, and not just tonight, even actually from the morning when we arrived, and all that we've done. I was just thinking as I sat that if I knew this is what the image you had in mind, then we should have come with a lorry load of friends and guests to really grace and witness this. But two things. One is the fact that we're in a digital world now, and so it's all being captured. So clearly the world will get to see it. The world will get to know it, Pararemo, and they would also get to experience firsthand the potentials that are here, and that my brother, I know, is also capturing in film to be able to take to the world. I think the second thing as well is the fact that we will definitely have another, and that we would plan properly when the world has opened up, when the world allows us to mingle and to get together the way we know that we're used to. So we will definitely have another reload. Definitely, we shouldn't things of strong content of culture. So it's content, but it's of culture and of quality should not just be kept in the backside. So really, we must bring the focus. We must bring the focus on this so it can come to the forefront. And by the grace of God, we will do this. Now, I know my brother is very enthused with the official title and all that. This is actually a personal project. But thank you. You can't seem to say we can't really separate the two. But I always want to make it clear that there is no government money in this project. So it's Sir Jimi Solanke, in reading the last part, which spoke a little about my dad. That was the training of my dad in Ibadan, which is not too far away from here, where Iyagoku was his house, and we know the Premier's office, Chief Obafemi at the time, was his office. And the OB is not Obey, it's actually Order of the British Empire. So it's a rank that was bestowed on by the Queen of England at the time in 1960, just before the independence. But then the point to note is he lived and passed on to us the need to keep private private and public public. My father will not allow his official car to sleep in his house. And that's why a lot of his drivers never knew he could drive. Because they pick him up in the morning, they bring the official car to his house. They pick him up in the morning, they take him to the office, they do the work, they take him back home after the office, and they go park their car in the office. And then, of course, the way Baba Agba knew my dad is not in those ones that happen in the hours, it's in the evening. All those places that Baba Agba was talking about earlier. What's that? Yes, all those clubs are here. That's where my father will now have his shower, and he will now get his car keys, and he drove very awesome cars there. He'll get his car key, a few of the pictures are here. He'll get his car key, hold his torch, and then he will then enter the real high life places where he's just simply Joe Imoukhuede. Those were the things that fascinated us growing up, and that's also the reason why, whilst even still in public service, I have kept my privacy private and public public. So this is a purely private project, but I'm also grateful for the opportunity that both Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari and his Vice Yemi Osinbajo have given me to serve my fatherland, both in the first term and now also in the second term. Things are a little different in the second term, but it's also a reflection of what's also happening globally and all of that. I want to say thank you to Baba Agba, but the way I also want to say thank you is excerpt of what one of the areas we read, which is page 243 in Sustaining the Legacy, and talking about the 7 attributes of public life. 1, selflessness. 2, objectivity. 3, integrity. 4, accountability. 5, openness. 6, honesty. And 7, leadership. And I want to thank God that Kabiyesi himself is here with his Olori and a few of his aides as well, and his chiefs, his valets, and some of the palace staff. I think for me, the point is, if we do imbibe these values, it would really help to transform our country and to give birth to the new Nigeria that we all desire. The new Nigeria we desire is not going to come by accident. It's not going to come by happenstance, because guess what? It actually existed before. So it did exist, but because of the fact that we have allowed these values to elude us, and these values have eroded us and eroded the fabric of our society, is the reason why we can no longer recognize the Nigeria that the Sir Jimi Solanke used to know in the Western region. The Nigeria that we are in today is a complete caricature of itself. And it would remain so if we do not begin to take it on as a personal responsibility. Now, blame nobody but ourselves. Because you know what? The politician there that is doing as he or she may like, and we can talk about all the things that we do in public service or as politicians. The reality is, the failings or the successes is a sum total of the society. Because if the politician goes in there to want to do straight and narrow way and to do things properly, you in the society that is outside, you are the same one that will abuse him. Now, the point is, you can't do both. Which is that he will take and not put it in the proper system, in the pot for everyone to benefit, then there's no way. I mean, it's one of the two. It's either we allow the system to work for the benefit of all, or we do the way it is. So we realize, therefore, that the responsibility actually lies on each and every one of us. Now, I know that there is much more evil than good. But the point is, in every space where each and every one of us is, we must become that agent of change. That agent of saying that, listen, these values, because that is why Baba can sit here. As I sat outside for a bit, no fence. That's how my father's house was all through his lifetime. His house in Iyogokun, no fence. And Okora that you were talking about that later rented his house when he moved to Benin were the ones that took permission to erect a fence. And the reason he didn't have a fence was because of his Biafra experience, which was captured in chapter 3, which we didn't feature in today's reading. And he said to himself, Muamba Biafra, in a fence, in a cell, gated. Gate arami, God forbid. So all through his lifetime, every home, if you see a house that they say he owns and he has a fence, he either doesn't own it or he never lived there. But if he lived there, he was like this, no fence. It was after much force, after too much pressure, that he actually put burglary proof. He didn't have burglary proof either. And yet he had sliding doors. It was after a lot of force that he had burglary proof. Now the reason is simple. Yorùbá náà ló ní kábíyèsí àlèkò níwájú yín sà, but mo tọrọ gáfárà. Wọ́n ní bó o bá jẹ́ gbì, ò lè kú gbì. So nígbà tó mọ̀ pé òun ò jẹ gbì, tó dẹ̀ mọ̀ pé òun ò jẹyàn lówó, tó mọ̀ pé òun I mean, so that's, and so my point is, Baba Agba epitomizes what we all want to be, what we all want our country to be. But then again, if we imbibe openness, integrity, honesty, just these values that we all know, that we all grew up with in our own personal space. I'm not talking about any other person's space, but just in your own personal space, it will begin to rub off on our society, and hopefully we would have a critical mass in no distant time to be able to bet the Nigeria of our dream. That's our project. That's what we hope to do with this book and with our tours as we go around. We've been to Ife before. We're in Ife. Some months ago, we're in Oshogbo. Now we're in Ipara. We don't know where next we will be. But I want to say thank you again. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Baba Agba Eshe gone, sir. And Kabisi, thank you for your time. Thank you so much, sir. So, and to the production team and all the musicians, say a big thank you, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.